Why are so many farmers angry? Well, for decades, farming families have been able to pass on their property, including land used for crops and animals, as well as buildings, without having to pay any tax. That is now changing after the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, announced a shake-up of inheritance tax in her autumn budget.
But for assets over £1 million, inheritance tax will apply with a 50% relief at an effective rate of 20%. This will ensure that we continue to protect small family farms and with three quarters of claims unaffected by these changes.
But it's a move which has prompted a backlash from farmers who say the change could affect the next generation's ability to carry on producing British food, with concerns they could be forced to sell land to pay for the tax.
It's looking at the future for our children if they want to come forwards into farming, and actually thinking about, do we need to start thinking about selling off the farm and changing our farming practice and no longer looking after this countryside.
Farmers who have spoken to ITV News say they might be asset rich, but they are often cash poor.
You're sat on several £1 million worth of assets, and some months, a £1,000 bill is a struggle to pay. It just seems ludicrous, really, that you're in that situation. The margins are that tight all of the time.
But who exactly will these changes impact, and how will the plans affect farms up and down the country? Let's look at the new rules in more detail. Now, agricultural property relief, or APR, is a type of inheritance tax relief. It came into effect in 1984. Currently, land used for farming is free of inheritance tax. This means farmers and landowners pay no tax when farmland is passed to the next generation after a death in the family. From April 2026, though, farms worth more than £1 million will have to pay inheritance tax at 20% above that threshold. Let's look at an example. If a farm is valued at, say, £2 million, the first £1 million would be fully exempt from tax. Every pound over that is taxed at 20%, meaning in this example, the farm would owe £200,000. But there are other tax allowances in play that would bring that figure down. Everyone, including non-farmers, are exempt from paying inheritance tax on estates worth up to £325,000, and an additional £175,000 allowance is given when you leave your main property to a direct descendant. So that's a further £500,000 in tax allowances. The government says this means a farm owner, depending on their specific circumstances, could be able to pass on up to £1.5 million on a farm tax-free to a child or grandchild. And two people combined can pass on up to £3 million tax-free. The National Farmers Union argues the changes will undermine the government's relationship with rural Britain and reduce investment in the sector.
Many of the food-producing family farms are worth a lot more than £1 million. And I know that that's a large sum of money, but the profit that they've been making from producing people's food is so low that they have no way to be able to pay that inheritance tax and keep the farm together.
Supporters of the reform, on the other hand, say the measures will make the system fairer and will close a loophole to stop rich people investing in land to reduce their inheritance bills. The government also says the measures will protect small family farms, with the tax mostly set to affect the wealthiest 500 estates, while smaller farms won't be impacted.
There has always been an economic rationale for reducing inheritance tax reliefs. If we're going to have an inheritance tax, then it makes sense for it to be evenly applied across assets of different types. So in that sense, this is a better system to move to.
As always, there will be winners and losers when taxes increase, but with more than a year until the changes will be implemented, it's still not entirely clear the extent to which these reforms could change the farming sector.